Call this meeting of the Marshall City Council to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or corrections to that agenda? Hearing none, that's what we'll operate under. First item on the agenda is a public hearing or the consider the approval of the minutes from our regular meeting held on October 22nd. You all have the minutes in front of you. Are there any additions or corrections?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by John. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We're not getting it.
Got to close voting. Bet yours is under this one still.
Sneaky. This isn't my normal position. My Mr. Mayor is gone tonight, so I am the President Pro Tem and out of place.
You are logged in this guy.
Okay, we can fix that. You want me to just go over there for now?
Continue. And I'll go.
Yeah, we can do a voice vote. Yep. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a public hearing for the project ST015 State Project 4204-40 2025 MnDOT College Drive Improvement Project. First thing on is an improvement hearing. Jason, is this yours?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. This project's been talked about for a number of years, but it's finally upon us, and we're to the point where we're ready to advertise for bids for this project. This is a Department of Transportation led project that the city's joint with. It starts about 700 feet west of Marlene Street and ends at the intersection of Bruce Street along the College Drive corridor. And it also includes Bruce Street from a point roughly 150 feet south of Highway 19/College Drive and ending 350 feet north. It's a big project in our community, one of the bigger projects that MnDOT District 8 has ever done based on cost. So it will be a pretty big project and a big impact. It's scheduled to take place over the next 2 years, 2025 and 2026 construction seasons. Be concrete pavement surfacing and full utility replacement underneath where needed, water, sewer, significant drainage improvements, lighting, signals. We won't go through the details of the project at this point. It's been talked about in the community and at numerous public events for quite a while. But tonight for this public hearing, we did notify all the property owners in the project corridor of this hearing. Included in the packet, after you receive the public input, we were asking you to consider a couple different resolutions. One resolution is ordering the improvement and the preparation of plans, and the other is approving the plans and ordering the advertisement for bids. The project is expected to have a bid opening of December 6th. Total project cost is roughly, for the city of Marshall anyway, our allocated cost is roughly $8.2 million. Between raise grant funds that MnDOT has shared with us, federal raise grant funds, and other federal grant dollars that the city has procured, we're looking at roughly $5.2 million in construction costs that the city of Marshall will owe. The large majority of those costs are utility fund costs from either Marshall Municipal Utilities Water Fund, the Wastewater Utility Fund, and the Surface Water Utility Fund. There are approximately just under $200,000, $197,300 in sanitary sewer service lines that are being proposed to be assessed. All other costs that we typically assess on this project are either covered by the utility or by MnDOT. So we, after working with the PIT committee, we move forward with only a special assessing sanitary sewer service lines that serve individual properties. So that is what we're proposing, and that's what we proposed in the feasibility report for this project as well. I or Eric Hansen in the audience here as well can answer any questions if we have any. But that's what we're proposing, and we would recommend to move forward with approving these resolutions.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And I know Jim and John and myself sit on the PI&T committee, and we did discuss this in a lot of detail over the past couple of years. I think, Jason, it might be beneficial to maybe drill down just a little bit into how we propose to assess the sewer service lines so that people can understand, depending on which side of the street adjacent to their property the sewers run into, to show that we're coming up with an equitable formula for how that's assessed.
Sure, yeah, I can help out with that. We kind of set a precedent for this formula with this last year's Whitney Street project. Most typically a sanitary sewer system is right down the center of the street or the highway. Therefore, you have an equal distance of sanitary sewer service line to each side of the street. In this project, as well as on Whitney, there are some locations where the sewer is not in the center of the street. Therefore, some sides of the road may have a shorter distance and the other side of the road may have a longer distance to reach the main with their service line. We are proposing to limit the length of the sewer service line that will be assessed to the distance from the center of the street to the property line. So as if the sewer were there, the wastewater utility will pick up the difference.
That's on just the longer lines though, correct? The shorter lines, because we cannot bill for a service that they're not provided.
That is correct. The shorter side will pay for the actual distance that they have. It's just the longer side will give them the benefit of the doubt by only charging to the center of the street where the sewer more typically is.
And it might also be beneficial to talk about, because if people haven't been through this before with water and sewer lines, the city owns the potable water lines to the curb stop right in the boulevard up to the right of way, typically just to the inside of the sidewalk where the curb shutoff is. Sanitary sewer lines are typically owned by the property owner all the way to the sewer main. So that's kind of the difference between sanitary sewer and potable water.
Correct.
So with that, we'll open it up for input first. Any comments or questions by council? And so anybody in the audience, if you have a question, concern, now's a great time to take care of that. What we ask is that you come up to the podium. I believe, is there a place for them to sign in? No, just come up and to the podium, because we are on local access TV, so that the people in the audience that aren't here can hear the question. Please come up to the podium and ask the question if you have any. Please come up front.
State their name.
And state your name and your address.
I'm Phil Carpenter. I'm at 511 East College. And I kind of heard and I didn't hear about because I got like my water, my main is in my front yard.
Sure.
So the question would be, I guess, because I know they're just doing from sidewalk out to street to the road. I understand that. I'm retired from Public Works from Chicago. So,
okay.
And I just moved to Marshall 2 years ago. So I kind of understand a lot of the construction parts, but would the resident be liable for any costs? That's the question that I got.
Sure. Jason, do you want to cover that?
Sure. First of all, welcome to Marshall.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
The assessment that you'll receive, I have in a spreadsheet here an estimated number for most of the addresses based on our pre-bid estimates. Most of the assessments are between $3,500 and $5,500 plus or minus. And so yours falls into that category. I think yours is about $3,500 at this point. You would be responsible for the cost from the sanitary sewer main in the street to the property line. So of the sanitary sewer service cost, you will pay all of that. Of the water service cost, the utility picks up that.
Okay, the
Your,
utility,
yes, go ahead.
the utility picks up from my house to the main.
On the water, on the water side.
correct,
Yes.
correct.
From the house to Jason, from the curb stop, correct?
Correct, the curb stop, which is right about, we'll terminate by the sidewalk, which is right near the right-of-way. That's where we'll connect to. So from the main in the street to the sidewalk is what will be replaced.
That's on the water line and the sewer, but the sewer
Correct.
line, you will be responsible for the price of the sewer line from the center of the street to the property line. The
Correct.
property owns that line. Maybe talk also, Jason, about the different ways that's attached. It can either be paid directly by the property owner, or the city also will finance it onto your property tax over, I think, an 8 or a 10-year period.
Before that, Jason, can you explain, some folks maybe don't understand what a curb stop is. Maybe explain, what the
Sure.
curb stop is in their yards, so they know from their house to the curb stop, and curb stop to the street, 'cause I think that was your question.
Yeah, pretty much. pretty
Explain
much.
what is the curb stop so people
Sure.
look for in their yard.
Yeah, in the water system, the curb stop is the valve on the service line that is located up on your property, just behind the
Correct.
sidewalk. Yep, so that is
It's
the
usually
curb
a
stop.
steel metal.
So from that location to the main, Marshall Municipal Utilities owns your water service line. But from that position, from that valve to your home, you own that.
Yeah, okay.
And the sewer line, you own it all,
And the utilities also owns the curb stop.
correct?
Yes.
sure
And
it's all-
then with regard to special assessments, at a later date, the city will send notification to all property owners who are going to receive an assessment, and it'll be a statement of your proposed assessment once the project is done, and you'll get notice of another public hearing where you're able to come speak to the council about your assessment if you choose. And that'll be the time to raise any concerns. So you'll get a notice
years
later.
down the
That'll be a
road.
couple of years down the road. I would expect that we won't handle assessments unless the council wants to do something differently until fall of 2026, and then payable as early as 2027. You can either pay it up front or any portion of it up front and finance, or you can finance the rest. And we've typically done 8 years where it can be paid over an 8-year term. The interest rate is 2% over our bonded interest rate at the time. So I think this last year it was 5.9 or 5.7%, something like that.
So do you got like a ballpark figure for where my address, for where they coming from?
Yeah, we're estimating your assessment right now at $3,800, but it's just an estimate. We don't have bids yet, and we don't have actual quantities. Things can change, so I always want to be sure that everyone knows it's an estimate at this time.
Yeah, I understand. I was a director in Chicago for Public Works.
There you go.
I got some ideas, but I'm also retired, so I don't make the big money like you no more.
Yeah.
But of course we get good pensions in Chicago.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but yeah, I think you answered my question.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any question or concern? And again, Jason, I imagine that we're going to handle, we being you, are going to handle this like the other projects. There'll be updates once the project is bid. I know it's MnDOT's project, but MnDOT, I think, has always been pretty good also about doing informational meetings and staying in communication with the affected residents, and always trying to work as hard as we can with having the least amount of disruption for the shortest period of time for people. If it's an access issue, in and out of properties, accessing, if you have alley connects that go on to College Drive, we try to do as best we can, working with MnDOT and the contractor to keep that as pain-free as possible.
Yeah, that's correct. It's our understanding that MnDOT is requiring the contractor to have a representative paid through the project to participate in weekly progress meetings with anybody who wants to attend. MnDOT does a pretty good job through their website and otherwise also providing updated information. It is a big project in a busy corridor in our community. There will be quite a bit of disruption, so we'll have to all be patient with that. But there will be opportunities to be heard and to get the phone number of someone to talk to. And that includes city staff, Eric Hansen, myself, Jeff Stelter, everybody in our engineering team will be participating as well.
Very good. Any other input? If not, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Amanda to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call to a vote, and I don't have that open on. Here we go. Here it is. Phew, missed it by that much. Close the voting. Public hearing is closed. So next thing is the council has the resolution number 24095, which is a resolution ordering improvement and ordering the preparation of plans for this project. Any discussion or questions on that? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jim, seconded by John to, for the resolution ordering the improvement and ordering preparation of the plans. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. Close the voting. And that motion passes. So the third thing under this item is that the council adopt the resolution 24-098, which is the resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering the advertisement for bids for the project. Any discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Amanda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. Close the voting. And that motion passes. Next, we have the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda. First, considering approval for a raffle for the United Way on January 17th, 2025. Second item is project ST 01202-2025 South Hill Street, South Minnesota Street, Charles Avenue Reconstruction Project. Considering resolution ordering the preparation of a report on improvement. Introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 22-8 licensing and registration requirements for the sale of intoxicating cannabinoid products. Consider the approval to allow alcoholic beverages at the Red Baron Arena for the Fairbanks Ice Dogs on December 6th and 7th. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's air monitoring equipment site lease, PC 0070 at the airport. And then to consider the approval of the bills and project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda that anyone wants removed for individual discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Amanda for approval of the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And that motion carries. New business. Consider the resolution approving the 2025 fee schedule. Carla, is this you?
It is.
Awesome.
Before you is the proposed 2025 fee schedule, which would not be effective until January 1st. The Ways and Means Committee met on October 22nd and reviewed this, and that is why what you have before you is in front of you. We do have staff available tonight for questions for any particular areas.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Sir?
I had a constituent ask about the fee for septic or sump pump discharge. So can we clarify that a little bit, Jason?
Is the question regarding why there's a fee?
Why and what the fee is and why is the fee the way it is?
Sure, if we can go to there on the schedule. I believe it's $50 or $75, and there's a few part component to it. I think a third of the cost is to cover the city employee coming out and making sure it's proper in the fall. A third of the cost is to cover the city's expenses for treating clean water through the wastewater treatment process. And a third of the process is for the city staff the third of the cost is for the city staff to go back and make sure that it's switched to go back outside. Because we'd like to have those touch points to make sure that everything's proper and looks how it's supposed to, and that you also get a little education and make sure that you understand it's supposed to go outside most times of the year. it's a public service that we allow it to go into the sanitary sewer system.
So the question would be from the constituents, how does the city monitor that violation or the pumping? Is that by complaint, or is it like most of the stuff we do, or is it by inspection, or?
We really rely on the honor system in our community and people to understand that clean water, sump pump water going into the sanitary system can cause major issues. I mean, you can flood your neighbor's basement, for example, if everyone's pumping into that. It doesn't take very many sump pumps to overwhelm a sanitary sewer system. So we really want everyone to do the right thing. We do try to communicate and let the community know that there's a permit for that and that there's a specific time of year where you can pump into the sanitary sewer. But it is really an honor system thing. Every once in a while during a wet time, we will maybe make observation in a neighborhood of who is not, or who has a permit and who doesn't, and are there hoses out, and is there something that we should be talking to someone about? But no, it's really an honor system.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
To touch base on that, forget my next question, are we still we don't have as much problem with the sanitary sewer system as we have in years past with all the work we've done, correct? Because I know in years past, we've had sewer backup during heavy rains because of sump pumps, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think the city's made a lot of significant strides in that area. You know, from my understanding, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, it maybe was worse than what it is today because of all the investing in the public infrastructure. But we don't need to look back too far. In 2018, there was some damage to some basements due to the system surcharging. And during that 2018 heavy rain period, if we remember that, we were running a lot of wastewater through our plant. You know, a more typical day is 2.3 to 2.6 million gallons per day, and peak flows would average out to 15 million gallons per day at that time. So that's a lot of clean water getting into the sanitary sewer system, and it's typically either backyard overflow water getting into manholes that are maybe removed, or sump pumps going into the sanitary sewer system, or roof leaders getting into the sanitary sewer system. So we're always vigilant, and we want to make sure that everybody's trying to do their best to put it where it belongs, which is outside.
And this is a good example of if people are compliant, we do not have to create an ordinance to inspect. But you're correct, Steve. I bought houses in communities where it's inspected before that house closes by the city engineer or Public Works Department. And you have to have it signed off that the sump pump is not going to the sanitary sewer. So this is one, if we have compliance, we do not have to create an ordinance, which is great. Questions I have though on this is I was going through on the food carts. I mean, I'm not opposed to some jump, but there seems to be a significant jump on those. And what is the reason we're talking 40, 50% jump on that fee, which seems excess to me. You know, even we go, is it $50 per day up to 7 days? There's $350 for that use of that? Or is that permit good for 7 days?
So at the meeting that we had on that, we talked about that, and the ideal is that if they go up to that 7 days, it's just cheaper for them to buy the annual permit, which incites them or incentivizes them to buy the annual permit, which is much cheaper. And so that's the reason. And then there was a great deal of discussion regarding the price, and the initial proposal was much higher. A couple of the members said a lower price, and ultimately was a compromise kind of right in the middle. Go ahead, Sharon.
Stephen, what was proposed by staff? Remind me again.
500.
500, and that was because that amount was in the middle when we compared it with other communities around our area and identical to our size. And so this is actually half of what is average.
And I've always said it doesn't hurt someday for us to say we're actually the lowest.
Well, we'd have to redo the numbers. We might be, right?
We could be.
We probably are.
Because I think food, it's a little added perk to have in town. $50 a day, I know there's, when the Marshall City Band does stuff, I think they have somebody come for a day. And then we also charge them a fee to hook up to electric too, correct? There's a fee on top of this fee before they can hook up at a park, correct?
Correct.
So then it gets expensive that we start chasing these out of town.
And remember, staff, I think, have brought forward concerns from brick and mortar establishments about fair competition. So part of it's not just administrative work. It's also trying to ensure a little bit more fair competition. as part of the license.
Do they pay a license on their food trucks?
Yeah, license
The
through,
brick and mortar, such as Chicken Connection has one.
they
Kitchen
would
Post
through
has one.
Department of Health.
They do not pay one for the city, though.
They do not. If there's a brick and mortar store, they are
Exempt
automatically
from it.
registered. Correct.
I just one that we always have to be conscious of fees. I do not like fees. I've never made that a secret. So, thank you.
Good discussion. Any more discussion? Not, I'd entertain a motion regarding the resolution approving the 2025 fee schedule.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by John to approve. Any further discussion? Go to a vote. Close the voting. And that motion does carry. Next item, adoption of the ordinance amendment to Chapter 86, Article 2-1, Section 86-31, prohibited uses. Ilya.
Thank you. This is just a minor change. We all know about the current trend to have wind farms, and this is trying to limit them at least within the city limits of Marshall. So that's what we are trying to do. That's the point of this thing. So I mean, the smaller ones will still be allowed, but you won't be able to have a wind farm inside the city. It went through the planning commission, was recommended approval, and it was introduced last council meeting.
Amanda, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, there was not a lot of concern or discussion. It makes sense.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or concerns? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by John to approve. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And that motion does carry. Next item is adoption of the ordinance amendment to Chapter 86, Article 6-1, Section 86-165, structures in residential districts. Ilya?
So this is about fuel tanks. The current ordinance allows the fuel tanks up to 50 gallons in residential area, and we are talking about above ground fuel tanks, of course. So there's a clarification here. The point of that thing is to utilize the local gas company and limit the kind of, let's be honest about that, kind of ugly tanks outside. So it came to our attention that even the 100-gallon tank is not enough to run the entire house. So the point of having the tank is sometimes, if everything is electric, people want to have the fireplace, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it is for. And in this case, there is not much difference between 50-gallon and 100-gallon. It's not enough for the whole house, but it's good enough for the fireplace. And there is still a requirement to fence it off. So that's what this small change is about.
Sure.
Again, it went through the planning commission and it was introduced last time.
Once again, Amanda, any?
Yeah, also no concerns or discussion.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? If
Move
not, again,
approval.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim for approval. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And that motion passes. Next item is adoption of the ordinance to amend ordinance amendment to Chapter 86, Article 2-1, Section 86-97, Low Density Residence District. Ilya?
So this is again, minor change. The ordinance limits the minimum size of the lot for residential. And before there was a requirement to have a larger lot for duplexes. But since every duplex is a conditional use permit in single family, low density residential district, it's kind of redundant. So it allows us to be more flexible, and that's why this provision is removed.
Sure.
Again, planning
Again,
commission.
Yeah.
went through the planning commission, no issues or concerns.
Excellent.
Makes sense.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, I'd accept the motion.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by Jim for approval. Any further discussion? If not, move to a vote. Close the voting. And that motion passes. Thank you, Ilya. Thank you. Next on the agenda, project SWM-003, Legion Field Stormwater Improvements Project Phase 3. Consider the award of proposal from Bolton and Mank. Jason?
Thank you. So in 2019, the city hired Bolton and Mank to complete a stormwater study in this, we'll call it the Legion Field area. That study identified 3 different projects to be completed to address frequent flooding in this fully developed area. The first phase was constructed in 2020, and that's the basins in Legion Park and behind Buffalo Ridge Concrete. The second phase was in 2023, and that was the basin that we added in the Parkway subdivision. This is the third and final phase of this stormwater study. One thing we haven't talked a lot about at council, because I kind of thought we would have a grant agreement sooner, but we did get an MPCA resiliency grant for this project. This is a $1.4 million project on our CIP, and we got a grant for $867,000 of that cost. So it's a very good thing, but in speaking with the MPCA, we are hearing that we should have our grant agreement any day now. So we plan to bring that as soon as we're able. We are proposing to hire Bolton and Mank for the drafting of the plan set. We would do, and we've already completed all the survey work. They would complete the plan design and the construction spec work, and we would administer the project and permit it through BNSF. This is a similar arrangement to what we did in phase 2. We think it's the best use of our time. We're not as proficient at pond design as they are. They can do it much quicker. We did phase 1. We hired them to do phase 2. We liked how that went a lot better. So we are proposing to hire them again for phase 3, and that cost is shown in the proposal as $76,500. This project, as you see on the screen, is kind of a cleaning and regrading of the railroad ditch east of Legion Field Road. We're going to jack and bore a pipe crossing under the railroad, similar to what we did with the last project, the phase 2 project. And then it identifies an open ditch going to a pond improvement. Likely will not be an open ditch, it'll be a pipe. And we're going to work through this contract to remodel this and make sure that we're right sizing the pond. We want to shrink it as much as possible and not take up land that we don't need to. So we're going to look at shrinking pipe sizes if possible and limiting pond size, and probably play around a little bit with the location of it to make sure that we're maximizing developable area. So our goal would be, once we start to work through that, is to meet with the PIT committee and share some concepts and make sure we're on the right track. So that is our proposal. I can answer any questions if we have them.
Any questions?
I do. Jason, so the grant that we are applying for, would that cover the cost, hopefully, as well as the development of these ponds?
I do not believe that engineering fees are grant eligible, but that's something that we can look into. This grant that we have will cover more than half of the cost of the project, which is really a really big help. I know that we wouldn't be doing this project this year with the surface water management utilities funding situation. Not that it's in dire situation, but we wouldn't have had the funding to really push this forward. So we're really happy we got that grant. But I don't believe engineering services are grant eligible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check into it. You never know.
Yeah, we will.
Any other questions or discussion? What are the wishes of the council?
I suppose we should make a motion to approve it.
Well, you could do that, or you could make a motion to not approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Amanda for approval. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think that, given the expense of this, I'm very thankful for the grant. It's still going to be tight, but the cost of the flooding outweighs the
Right.
cost to the city. So the savings so I'm going to vote in favor of it.
Absolutely.
This will prevent the flooding back by Buffalo Ridge and help with all that, correct?
There is a pipe across Legion Field Road in the railroad ditch that does come this direction. Some of the water from Buffalo Ridge comes this direction. The majority of it goes into the project that we completed in the last two projects, to be honest, in 2020 and 2023.
From 30 years ago, Steve, that we have a lot less street flooding, a lot less. There's been a expense put into this, but Marshall's a much nicer community. I think 40 years ago, I can remember riding bikes through streets covered in water because it was kind of fun to do. We don't have, our kids don't have that opportunity anymore because you've taken it away.
Thank goodness, right?
Well, they don't.
If I
But you
could
see the
add
flooding that
something.
we've had around our area lately, and we have
Didn't have it.
prevented that, thank God.
The work that's been done in Marshall, both through the core projects and everything in the last, 25 or 28 years,
Made a difference.
has made a tremendous difference. And Jason, to Jason's credit and the credit of Bolton and Mink, this has been a multi-phase, long-term project, and these last two are probably the most difficult because doing a large boring and traversing underneath the railroad tracks is not a minor operation. And especially with Burlington Northern, and that's a higher speed, that's a 49 mile an hour rail, and they move a lot of dangerous liquids on that track. It is a main line for liquid transport. And so they take that serious. And so those steps to get this done, my hat's off, because it's not that they're not good to negotiate with, but they are very thorough, and they want to make absolutely certain that their right-of-way is protected and the integrity of that rail bed is protected also. So this is not an easy project.
Yeah, it is thorough, and there's a lot of tasks that you have to come along with. It takes a long time to get it permitted, and then the contractor has to do settlement monitoring, and we survey and make sure that there's not displacements occurring in the track. It's pretty involved. I do want to point out as well that when we do some of these ponds, it also helps us meet our MS4 stormwater permit mandates. We need to have a certain level of stormwater treatment, and we are short in some areas, and this does help us meet that.
Jason, go back to the map shot of that. So take notice of that red, I call it a big bratwurst there. That's that's an enhancement to that pond also. You want to talk just a second about that?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we're going to do it exactly like that or not. It's shown in concept, but we do try to build in these filtration cells that provide some stormwater treatment. We try to settle out solids and materials that are in the stormwater and the runoff, keep them in the pond, so cleaner water leaves the pond. So we try to get rid of some suspended solids and hopefully thereby also reduce the phosphorus that's in the output of the pond.
And that pays us bonuses down the road as we negotiate limits on our wastewater discharges also. So that PCA and EPA look at that all in a package. So when we can clean these ends up, it makes it a lot less expensive for us when we're looking at upgrading our wastewater treatment facility also.
And I think we also have, all this said is, for those of us who lived in Marshall a long time, Marshall's built on a swamp.
It is, it's a drained lake bed.
You know, that swamp used to filter the water, and we're bringing it back to that, which is good. I mean, Marshall's, it's low. We're built on a swamp.
So, any further discussion? If not, I believe we have a motion and a second, so I will bring this to a vote. Close the voting. And that motion carries. So the next item up, and this is something that the Airport Commission just met with last week, the Instrument Landing System ILS Replacement Runway 12 and 1. The first is the authorization to TKDA to advertise. Jason?
Thank you. Yes, so this has been a project that's been on the list for a couple years. MnDOT Aeronautics has approached us. They'd like to replace our ILS, our Instrument Landing System equipment. They provide the equipment. The catch is that we need to do all the other work, the civil site work to prepare the ground and the footings and all the other work that comes along with replacing the electronics. So we've been working with TKDA. The council has already authorized us to do a design contract, and we've got plans ready to go and advertise. So we're now seeking authorization from the council to advertise this project for bids with the goal of opening bids on December 10th and hopefully bringing them forward to council on December 17th for consideration of a contingent approval. Cost of the other, I don't know if you want to talk about both items on this?
We can.
Okay. The other item is a professional services contract with TKDA to help administer the contract and compliance with MnDOT and FAA regulations. They've given us a proposal of $62,900. That is also grant eligible. So what we would propose is that we move forward with that contract, and we also move forward with the authorization to advertise. Once we have bids in hand, we can then submit for a state grant and hopefully get a 70-30 cost split on all the costs of construction and engineering services. This project has already been financed, and EJ could talk more about that, but we had assumed a cost of $1 million total on this, and we are tracking below that, where our current cost estimate for construction is, plus engineering, is probably around $750,000.
And I think it's important too, that the item that Jason talked about with the second part of this item about the professional services agreement with TKDA is in that conversation. It was a pretty detailed conversation that we had last week at the Airport Commission, and it's really important that we have that services on site when the critical footings work and all that comes into play, because this is that whole remote, the instrument landing system. And so if those are off a half a degree, we've got problems. And so having TKDA, and they are the gurus in this, to have them on site is invaluable. So I think this is a good project. I know the commercial pilots that fly in and out are pretty adamant that how crucial this is for the value of our airport and for the souls that fly in and out of here on a regular basis. So appreciate that. Any other questions or comments?
Comment I have, Craig, it's not just the value for the airport, it's the value for the community for those planes that come in and out.
Well, absolutely. And we've talked about that before, Jim, is that, we have, the medical helicopters and other things, but there's been times in the community where the weather is inclement enough that the helicopters can't fly, but the services do bring in fixed wing. And that's where this really becomes critical, is in marginal weather, and those fixed wings come in. We're by land in good weather an hour and a half from a critical care facility. If the weather is bad, that land rig may not go, but those aircraft still fly.
Well, it's just not medical. I was getting to the point of it's just commercial and business too.
Sure.
Because I've hopped out of that airport on a Marvin plane before, dense fog, you couldn't see in front of your face, the way they go.
Yep.
They had no troubles. It's imperative that we keep this up and running for our business community too.
Good conversation. So what are the wishes of the council? And I would take this, both items as a single motion. Is that all right, Steve?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
By Jim, seconded by Steve. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And that motion passes. So next thing is the council board liaison reports. Steve?
I have nothing. Mine have not met.
Okay. Amanda?
I don't have anything either.
Okay. James?
Nothing.
John?
Nothing.
And we've covered my issues with the airport commission. So how about some council member individual items? Steve, we're going to start with you again.
Sure. The only thing I'd like to say is the election is over, and whether we're happy for the outcome or not happy, the rules in Marshall state that all of our political signs have to be brought down by 11/15/2024, 10 days after the general election. They can be up from 46 days before till 10 days after. So just mind your advertising and take it down as appropriate.
Very good.
Well, as I said before, Steve, the comment on that, unfortunately, we make ordinances for people who don't seem to follow our ordinances. Take them down, we don't have to make any more ordinances. Just be good citizens.
Very good. Amanda? Jim?
I have nothing. Amanda has something to go to at 6:30.
John, do you have anything?
So Alex.
I have nothing either. So staff reports. Sharon?
Our Marshall Aquatic Center Committee did meet, and we met on November 6th to get an update from Contegrity, our construction manager. So Councilmember Elkhorn and Schaefer and Muleski were able to be present. And really, we just needed a check-in. I know the one update I gave to council in an email didn't tell you much. So They did give us a more concrete timeline, which this week I know they're hoping to finalize numbers. They are going to come to council on December 10th. And I think we'll schedule that as a work session prior to the council meeting if we can figure that out with Stephen in terms of timing. And at that point, I think we'll have a pretty good feel on what the estimate will be. Some of the estimates will be for the aquatic center. And also the revised work scope. And I know that the committee has heard a little bit on some of the revisions, such as kind of reducing the footprint of the overall size of the aquatic center, combining the maintenance building and the bathhouse together to reduce the cost of those buildings. And also the pool design itself is going to change. There was in the previous bid, a different liner system. We are now looking at concrete just to kind of save some of those dollars. We know we have a big gap and hopefully we can get there with some of these changes. They are looking at, again, then in January, coming back to council to seek permission to advertise for bids. It'll likely be that last meeting in January. And hopefully by that time, and even prior, all their discussions with contractors, local and non-local, they'll have a pretty good idea that this project is coming and not be surprised. So I thought it was a really good meeting to get an update. I apologize to council not getting something more definite, but this was really the first time we heard kind of more of an exact schedule. So I don't know if Councilmember Elkhorn or Schaefer want to add anything, but that was my report for this meeting, Mr. President Pro Tem.
John? No. So just real quick on that, Sharon, too, and thank you. And, I agree. I think that we'd like to have been able to bring back a little bit more information right now. I know the public is probably wanting to know also, but I respect the fact that the team, the construction management team and the engineering firm want to make sure that they're more solid on the numbers before they start floating things out. And I respect, and I think we respect as a committee where they were at. I mean, obviously, we would like to be further into it with more, but wish is not a plan either. So we're more concerned about them getting it right. And I think I'm very comfortable and encouraged by the efforts that they're putting in and the kind of the signals. They're good poker players, so they didn't want to lead us astray at all. And so I appreciate that, but stay tuned. As soon as we know things, we'll make sure the public knows. But yeah, I appreciate that, Sharon. So, Jason? You were
Not
done,
too
right,
much.
Sharon?
Yes, I was.
Thank you.
Sorry, not too much. Just point out that Planning Commission meets tomorrow night. And next week on Thursday, so November 21st, we are planning a public informational meeting for Minnesota Hill Charles reconstruction or Phase 2 in that hospital area. We do have those meetings early to get input from the residents and make sure we're, one, communicating the intent that there likely is a project coming, and then two, getting that input and having that conversation and start to establish connections. We do always propose that it's a proposed project until it becomes a project, but just want you to be aware of that. And I think we notified the PIT committee of that, and if not, I'll check into getting some notifications.
We'll be okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. So City Attorney Pam Whitmore is not available, but Peter McHale is going to be covering for us. Peter?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. I do not have any report from Pam for this evening.
Okay, very good, thank you. So, and we do have all the administrative brief with the permits and other notices, and then also the informational items are there in the packet. Also, the schedule for upcoming meetings. Is there anything else that we should bring forward at tonight's meeting? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by Jim. That's the beauty, I get to call that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And we're adjourned. Thank you.